and Lindsay McKinnon. Yeah, oh, I've got it right. See, I didn't even look at my paper, did I? Samantha, the wonderful author of the Curmudgeon Avenue, that's it. I knew it was. And of course, this evening we're celebrating the launch of the audiobook. I've never really listened to audiobooks, but I've just started this week with Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets, and I'm absolutely I'm convert. I really am, so I look forward to listening to this. Okay, so if you'd like to give them a little warm welcome to that. Thank you very much. Go straight in.
Right. This book is dedicated to the Whitefield Massive. Chapter 1, August Apologies. On the day this all started, the sky was full of August apologies for a summer undelivered. The jubilant bounty of July had almost disappeared, half eaten by gangs of gastropods. Despite the rain, pastel-shaded summer clothes continued to be rotated in wardrobes across the northwest of England, resulting in damp trouser angles. Most houses do not feel the need to complain. Their heating comes on and then goes off again. Doors open and close. Foot traffic of fairy elephants wear down the floorboards, carpets, and staircases. But then, most houses do not have to suffer the ruin, the anguish of ruin, the suffering of internal clowns dragging them down. I was once known around these parts as a desirable residence. Folk aspired to habituate here. Why, even Mr. and Mrs. Payne were of the well-to-do set in their day. Although, I must admit, in their twilight years, the sun had not shone brightly enough on the paintwork of number 1 Curmudgeon Avenue for any cracks to be noted, assessed, and remedied. Overall maintenance of my structure had been somewhat neglected. And yet, my 4 stories of Georgian revival architecture remained fit for purpose. Wind delivered wet rubbish and leaves in my corners, fossed, cracked, unwanted crevices, which even a renovation facelift failed to repair. Yes, I am a snob. And what of it? If I had a nose, I'd be looking down it right now. It's the only way I can protect myself against the intertwined lives of my remaining residents. When I was empty, I dreamt of perfect house guests. I personally would have liked nothing better than to be sold on to a grateful and charming family, employed in middle management with high-performing children. I'm a stone's throw from Whitefield Station and a minuscule commute to Manchester. Such is life. If I may, what follows is the tragedy of how poor Mr. and Mrs. Payne met their end, which resulted in what I have to put up with now. The story of how Harold, Edith, and Edna came to be living under my roof. If I have to contend with this bunch of nincompoops, then so should you.
Yeah. Thank you, Lindsay. I've had the pleasure of hearing the audiobook all the way through, and Lindsay's voice just really carries out my characters and makes them brilliant. But I wanted to talk about how the Curmudgeon Avenue series started. My brother-in-law. published 2 years ago, but the story actually started in 2014. I lost my job as a nurse because I've got MS, and I started a very friendly, say that because some of them are here, Whitefield, creative writing course at Whitefield Library, because I thought, oh, I could just about manage 2 hours a week, you know. And the first story that we ever had to write was a story about winter. So, oh God, what am I going to write? And I drove home, and it was autumn, and you know, all the leaves and whatnot were falling on my car, and I was thinking, what can I come up with? Later that week, myself and Mark went to the Aldi car park, and he parked up in a disabled spot, and this man like screeched his car and was giving us a bit of grief. We parked in a disabled spot. He come into the mother and baby, and he didn't we've nicked his space. I think he wanted to nick our space, basically. And I thought to myself, what a curmudgeon, or words to that effect. And then,
That's the cleaned up version.
Yes, and then I had my idea for my story, and Harold and Edith and Edna just came to me, because I knew that as my life is a little bit like a sitcom, that I would be writing a satire and comedy drama. I had to pick the character names dependent on that genre. And now I've written 4 books. Mark said, why don't you do an audio book? And for ages, and Phil also said that. And oh, okay, filled in all the forms and put it on the internet, not expecting anyone to choose my little book. But fortunately, another October morning, I got an email from ACX, which is part of Amazon, all the way from California. A message from Lindsay saying, I would like to narrate. So, what made you? May I ask?
What made me choose this book?
Yeah.
Right. Well, I'd actually been looking at audiobooks on ACX for a few months, downloaded a few scripts. Nothing really excited me, because if I'm going to read something, I want to feel passionate about it, I want to give it life, because there's a lot of work goes into producing one of these. It's at least 6 hours per hour narrated that goes into it once you've recorded it and edited it and putting it down, that kind of thing. So I needed to feel passionate about the piece. Because I do a variety of accents and things, I put all sorts of accents in, so it's coming up with like, you have 3,000 options for this, and it's like a bit too wide a scope. So I narrowed it down and just put like Manchester accent comedy, and there was a few came up, but the one that stood out, particularly because I loved the cover of this, just because it's so daft. And it's now been changed. But that's the one that stood out. So I read the script and I thought, oh my God, I love this. As soon as I was reading it, I actually heard the voices in my head. I felt the characters. I thought, I love these. So I thought, I'm desperate to get this audition off as quick as possible, because it's always the same. If you like a book, it's gone in a flash. So I tried to get my audition piece together, and as the fates wouldn't allow, my equipment went funny. I was getting a buzz on my computer. There was all sorts of bangs and knocks and God knows what else. Had to go into Apple twice. I was on the phone to Apple going, there's something wrong with my computer, I've got to do this, I don't want to do that. Okay, madam, calm down. But you don't understand, it'll go. Eventually, 2 weeks later, I managed to get the audition piece downloaded, 2:30 on a Sunday morning, thinking, she's going to hate it, she's going to hate me, she hates everything I do, and somebody else is going to pick me to the post. But about 5 hours later, very early the next morning, I got an email from Sam, which couldn't have been more reassuring. It was lovely and it was very flattering. Thank you for that. And that was it. It all started from there.
Yeah, but put yourself in my shoes, you know. I'm there thinking, oh, no one's going to pick it. There are all these other books with more better book covers, etc. And I just played this little thing. And I'm like playing it thinking, oh my god, that is how I imagined it to sound when I was writing it, you know. Yes, where do I sign? It's just like a, you know, things happen to people, you know. So yeah, I was made up really. It's been good working pro. But the other thing I want to say about Lindsay's narration is she's brought out the characters. And I didn't realise that Mrs. Alley, the shopkeeper, is actually Scottish. She is.
She is.
So,
And her tone, her accent seems to lend itself to that. Because obviously this is something we were concerned about. Mrs. Alley obviously doesn't necessarily have family that reside in Radcliffe or going back generations. But it's one of those accents, although I could do that kind of accent, I thought, okay, political correctness says I'm going to be treading on way too many, this is dangerous territory, I can't do this. And of course,
we're multicultural though.
we are multicultural, yeah, we are multicultural, but also people who are brought up in specific areas then have the accent of that region. And because there's so many, there's actually 50 different voices in this book, so that was quite a challenge. So some of them, yes, thank you for that. So some of them were, I thought, by necessity, I had to give a completely different accent to. And as I started reading Mrs. Alley, her tone, her style, all just seemed to lend itself to a Scottish accent. So I contacted Sam and said, do you mind if I make it Mrs. Alley Scottish? So she, okay. And then after about the third or fourth time of saying, do you mind if I make this person this and this person that, and this one's going to be Welsh? Just, I'm going to leave you to it. Just you come up with whatever you, because I'm loving what you're doing, so you just do whatever you want. And that was fantastic because as an audiobook narrator, you're not going to get that all the time. Because obviously, as a writer, these characters are your babies. Mm-hmm. This is, you've given birth to these, you know, so you're going to be very precious about who they are and how they sound. So if you do something that's, well, I didn't write it like that, then it's going to take a very confident author to be able to say, yeah, go with it. So that was really lovely. I thought that was a nice part of our working relationship.
Brought it alive, a whole new dimension. Right, well, lots of characters. A reviewer early on had put on Amazon that Curmudgeon Avenue is like Coronation Street on speed. And I thought, it is actually. Well, Amazon actually removed that because it must be a bit.
Oh, because it refers to drugs.
Maybe. They don't tell
Or it
you.
refers to Coronation Street. Well, actually, one of the characters in it, Psycho Steve, I got in my, because sometimes I need to get a character in my head to base it on. So Psycho Steve I've based on Pat Phelan from Coronation Street, the best baddie ever. He left and stopped watching Corrie after that. But, so he's a very laid back, low talking Scouse who's quite intimidating because he's so laid back. I don't think you want to do that. So it's very kind of, you need to feel that in the characters. But that was what was brilliant about Sam's work, writing. It was easy to find the characters. I just read them and the voice would pop into my head. Chapter 27.
So, a bit more, I think, now of the...
Yes, there's a few more characters in this one. Oh, look, we've got backing music as well. Right, chapter 27. Is nothing sacred? Hello, Edna, Edith. Hello, darlings. I made you a casserole. Mrs. Alley shouted through that letterbox of number 1, Curmudgeon Avenue. She couldn't remember a time when the street had been so busy. New lodgers, roofers, Ricky Ricketts staying upon Wanther until she takes him back. Hello, she rattled. Inside, the hair up Harold's nostrils began to twitch. He'd always been very good at sniffing out free food. He had been stealing from his housemates up until now, waiting for either Georgina had gone to work or Edith had gone out. Ricky Ricketts, despite being skint, was constantly getting drunk and ordering takeaways. Harold had not seen much of Edna and was enjoying the fact that she was ignoring him. Mrs. Alley stood back in shock and delighted surprise when Harold swung the front door open and reached forward for Mrs. Alley's casserole dish. Mrs. Alley quickly put her tea towel back over the top. Hello, darling. Hello, Mrs. Alley, Harold said, almost snatching the food out of her hands. So, you did move in then? Mrs. Alley knew precisely who had moved in. She knew everything. This casserole's for Edna and Edith, really. Are they in? Mrs. Alley and Harold circled one another, Harold reaching out for the dish and Mrs. Alley putting her hand over the doorframe. You can give it to me, I'll put it in the kitchen, Harold said. He meant to put the entire contents of the casserole dish in his own stomach. It was only fair. He did not know where his next meal was coming from. This was not part of the deal as far as Mrs. Alley was concerned. Her curried casserole was currency for gossip. That's how it had always worked on Curmudgeon Avenue. In actual fact, up and down the country, the giving and receiving of leftover food often had an agenda. And being a bachelor, Harold was wise to this. Oh, aye, Mrs. Alley, is your shop not open? I need some fags. Ricky Ricketts squeezed past Harold while putting his arms into his greasy leather jacket. Oh, I'll have to come back with you, Mrs. Alley said in a fluster. Somehow, Harold had managed to get hold of the casserole dish. Dismayed, Mrs. Alley set off to return to her corner shop. As the front door closed, she heard, "Psst! Psst! Mrs. Alley!" from the upstairs front loft window. This was Edna, trying to whisper a secret message to her neighbour. "I'll try and come round. I can't stay in this room forever. The roofers will be here in a minute." "She's bonkers," Ricky Ricketts smirked. "I'm sure she's trying to hide herself from Harold." Mrs. Alley could not wait for Edna to arrive so she could hear the full story. "Do you sell flowers, Mrs. Alley? I'm trying to cheer one up." "So she'll take you back again?" "No, I don't sell flowers. But I do have a special on after dinner mints. I bought in a job lot when that Maurice was visiting. But then he tried to murder your Auntie Edna, and he doesn't come round as much anymore," Mrs. Alley said, reaching for the mint chocolates. Ricky Ricketts did not bat an eyelid at the prospect of someone wanting to murder Edna. "Why have you fallen out with Wanther this time?" Mrs. Alley said, reaching for the cigarettes. "Oh, she's stupid. I borrowed my mum's library card and she didn't like the books that I was reading. I got out that 50 Shades of Grey. I thought it was romantic. She didn't like it. Then the other books, well, just because they were about men who were either murdering their wives or having affairs, she thought I was doing research." "And were you?" "No, I told you, she's an idiot. She threw those books in the paper recycling bin. She's an idiot. Ricky Ricketts left the shop in search of his idiotic on-off girlfriend. There's nothing secret, Mrs. Alley said to herself. Psst! Edna summoned Mrs. Alley to the back of her own shop. There, later that same day, the gossip commenced. Oh, so he's Whitefield's unrelenting flasher, said Mrs. Alley. Of course, she had heard plenty of whispers about it all those years ago. Today, she was delighted to find out that the man in question was Harold, and that Edna had made the whole story up for revenge. He can eat fast, too. I can't believe he polished that whole entire chicken casserole off to himself. Edna had to be paid in emergency samosas in exchange for the full story. And I haven't even filled you in about Georgina Foote yet, said Edna. No need, darling. My son knows someone from the Turkish restaurant. There's a cafe at the Cash and Carry. He hears all sorts of gossip there. Well, she's a shadow of her former self, if you ask me. The way her mother dropped her to the floor and kept her lying there, and she used to be a ward sister on a psychiatric unit. I suppose, though, Georgina can chew carpet like the rest of us can. No, darling, Mrs. Alley said. Did you know that your nephew, Ricky Ricketts, has stolen his mother's library cards? No, I did not, Edna protested. But it doesn't surprise me. He'll steal anything that isn't nailed down. And that he used that card to get pornography from the library. Edna's voice was shrill, her nostrils quiversome. Well, a mucky book. I wouldn't stock it in my establishment. Mrs. Alley threw her silk shawl over her shoulder in disgust. I should think not, Mrs. Alley. I mean, is nothing sacred? And no, darling. No wonder Edith was all upset and flustered when she came home from the library. Oh no, she was flustered because Harold is her new fancy man. I was minding my own business, swilling buckets out on the street. Naturally, Edna agreed. And I heard your sister giggling like a schoolgirl, laughing at anything that man said. I could hear her before I saw her. Mrs. Alley had folded her arms. I'm telling you, Edna, Cupid's arrow has struck on Curmudgeon Avenue and has tied your sister and that man together. Oh, flopped Edna. Nothing is sacred. Mrs. Alley and Edna looked out onto the street, and in the sunlight they saw the silhouette of Harold stalking past the shop.
Thank you, Lindsay.
Elder.
Well, you know, Harold stalking past the shop and moving in on Eden